Hoseo. That's a
Hoseo.
Cherokee greeting, and wave the great feather for the good of it. The theme I'm doing today, I'm calling it the Mystic Prairie and then the Buffalo Clan. So we're kind of starting out with that. And at the same time, to start with, I'm introducing here, if anybody doesn't already know, this is Carlos Castaneda. His first book, it was about 1968, and he did 12 books all total before he passed on. And the last one was published in 1998, so it's rather a whole series, you know, with this theme that he's subtitled The Teachings of Don Juan, a Yaqui Way of Knowledge. I would change that to actually a Cahokian system of shamanism, and then which is the embodiment in Mescalito, who is the dictatic entity of the first shaman. So what I'm proposing here, or I should say, just following the month given to Native American Heritage Month, and we do understand that America, from this point of view, is a foreign name. It is a foreign name, right? So from here, we call this place Turtle Island. And it seems to me the Cherokee name, Amayote, meaning water nation or water country, kind of, you know, helps with that as well. Or we can, you know, speak of First Nations. And before the Europeans, I mean the huge body that came over here, there was civilization here. And I'm, you know, touching upon that because what I'm looking at is this shamanism that is the subject of Carlos Castaneda's book. Now, who he is a anthropology student, a grad student, albeit, you know, at UCLA, and he has the backing of that department's professors for this project, because these professors knew, perhaps kind of rightly, that any knowledge and any anthropology knowledge of indigenous people here was going to be wiped out eventually, you know, by the technical society that's taken over. So anyway, that's all the prompt in this, and in the course of it, Castaneda has become something of an apprentice shaman himself. And the word shaman and sorcerer kind of alternate here and there in his books. But more properly, we should say a shaman. And in this ancient city, Cahokia, I had introduced last week that starting between, you know, between 2,000 and 3,000 years, way up north, you know, above the Ohio River, like that, is where we're seeing the first mounds. We've come to call that the Adena culture. And then that eventually evolved over some hundreds of years into one that we then call the Hopewell culture, and that lasted for a few hundred years. And then, rather lastly, we're talking about another evolution. In other words, there's a little gap there until a new one rises, and the principle is Cahokia. That's what it's called. It's in Illinois. It seems to be in the vicinity of St. Louis, Illinois. And at least one person that I know that has been to that site is Deanna Beachley, who is a college professor in Las Vegas. So I like that I have, you know, an actual personal connection to the place that I'm speaking about, that we've called Cahokia. Cahokia was the largest urban center in Turtle Island, north of Mexico. And they built pyramids, and the largest or principal pyramid there is said to have been 100 feet high and something like 700 feet, you know, at the base, like that. And so this was a very developed urban society. Yes, you know, something like 40,000 people lived principally, but it had suburbs all around, and then it radiated out its influence. So it was pretty considerable. It coexisted in North America with, in Mexico, the Great Pyramid they call Teotihuacan, there. That's a larger pyramid, of course, but it's going on at the same time. The main connection of that to corn, the cultivation of maize or corn. That's an advancement here in Turtle Island. So that's what pretty much generates, that culture. And they're in that, and because it's an urban culture, it's pretty extensive. And within that, then I'm saying, this is, educated intuition, a master shaman gathered these features of shamans. Now, shamans known, all over the world, in societies all over the world. And the word for that is infraspecific. In other words, basically, grouping or society of people, there's an infraspecific individual who will come into being, and we use this modern kind of language of shaman. And of course, different languages have different names for them. Dedonosiki is in Cherokee for that. And here, I'm saying, a master shaman in Cahokia sensitized the features of shaman and constructed a system that could be, passed on from one to another. Here in this country, the people we call Navajo, they have a system. We call it Hatal, the Chatway. The Chatway system is, studied and passed on from one person to another. Another one is just east of San Diego, out here in the desert. The people that we call the Kauia, like that, we now know they have been in that location in the desert for 8,000 years. That's been recently affirmed archaeologically. And the Kauia have a shaman system also. It's called the Puvalim. And within the Puvalim, they also have a Pauvalu, which is individuals who are gifted shaman. In other words, individuals who have the calling, and they may answer that calling or maybe not, like that. But in the meantime, the society does bear a system for that. So that's the idea. Now I'm saying the teachings of Don Juan, which the book starts out with that title. The author purports that these teachings were given to him in Spanish, and so he's translated all of these books into English from Spanish. That's what he says. So there is not any other language involved, in these books at all. There's only these specialized terms which are anglified by the teacher. So all of that is what we're looking at. In other words, the teachings of Don Juan are rooted in Native American shamanism. That's my main thing here. So to say some things about that, I'm going to look here. Look at this portrait here. I very much imagine that an ancient person of Cahokia would look like this. You could call him anything. He could be a shaman or whatever would be a priest. Certainly somebody who's very specialized with all that adorns him there. So I think that's a very likely portrait of a person living in Cahokia 1,000 years ago there. And then we go over to the other side there. Now this is a Cherokee. This is, very traditional Cherokee in the 18th century. Pretty much the English Americans, pretty much began history of the Cherokees at 1700. And so this person here is Leka Chief. He's actually governor. He's governor of a very large island in the Mississippi River. And his name is Hakolakola. And Tachi means he is the governor. And so what's very interesting is that very, very recently I did a report on this a couple of years ago. A moth in the Blue Mountains of Tennessee had been discovered that they didn't know about before, and they gave that moth the name of him, Akulakula. And so there you see he's wearing a turban, and this all bespeaks of the Phoenician presence or the Phoenician influence that is evident in the Cherokee culture. And when we go down all the way over there to that figure sitting there, that's very interesting. Of course, I was a student in Mexico, and one place that I was in Oaxaca, and I stayed with a family there, and these people were the people who are principal there called Zapotec. The Zapotecs are also a mound people, mound building people, mound culture people, and their principal site is a very, very high, it's at Monte Alban. And the first president of the Republic of Mexico was a Zapotec, Benito Juarez. Anyway, I wanted to put this figure there. This figure looks like, something like a priest or a shaman, and he is, having a gesture called, Wahoye. Wahoye meaning I send word with my heart. That's his gesture there. And then I can bring you over here to this here. This is like a flint chipped eagle. This is actually from the Hopewell or the Ohio River mound culture. And so we definitely want to have that in here. And this one I showed you last time. This is somewhere in the Mississippi, a mound in the Mississippi Valley. But I wanted to keep it here with this theme. Then I'm coming up here to this carved stone pipe. Again, the pipe personifies tobacco. The frog, I should say. The frog personifies tobacco, and of course, it smokes and it goes up to the sky, so it also has to do with rain or fertility. So it's a very important piece. Now, it seems that this society, Cahokia, were somehow well known for their carvings, like this carvings of stone pipes. And so I want to put this here as representing Cahokia and its arts and crafts that way. Below it you see a string of pearls. These are fresh water pearls. I think that I had the idea that these were from the Ohio River. Now, it used to be that these pearls were considerable abundance, and people use them for adornment variously. So I'm very happy to have this string of freshwater pearls to remind us of that, and some people were very adorned with these pearls. When the French in the South began their invasion into our country, they went as crazy over these pearls as the Englishmen did over gold, and had consequences. So that is an ancient stone carved pipe representing the carving of Cahokia. Now what I wanted to carry out in this theme here, what this one piece, and this is from Castaneda's book called The Power of Silence, Further Lessons of Don Juan, like that. And what, to me, this piece expresses is Native American. In other words, he's having, the author, who's the apprentice here, to Don Juan, who is the forest teacher, is what I call him. He is having a wonderful visionary experience with his teacher. They're there together. So I'm reading it. We were on a mountain top, looking down over exquisite flatlands with mountains in the distance. This beautiful prairie was bathed in a glow that, like rays of light, emanated from the land itself. Wherever I looked, I saw familiar features: the rocks, the hills, the rivers, forests, canyons, enhanced and transformed by their inner vibration. Their inner glow. This glow that was so pleasing to my eyes, it also tingled out through my very being. My ears had been temporarily affected by what was transpiring. What is happening? I thought. But then I sensed a command that was not expressed in my thoughts. Something ordered me to look again at the prairie. As I stared at the wondrous sight, filaments of light began to radiate from everything on that prairie. At first, it was like the explosion of an infinite number of short fibers. Then the fibers became long thread-like strands of luminosity, bundled together into beams of vibrating light that reached infinity. There was really no way for me to make sense of what I was seeing, or to describe it, except as filaments of vibrating light. The filaments were not intermingled or entwined, although they sprang and continued springing in every direction. Each one was separate, and yet all of them were inextricably bound together. You are seeing the eagle's emanations and the force that bundles them together, was Don Juan's thought. The instant I caught his thought, the filaments of light seemed to consume all my energy, and fatigue overwhelmed me. So I'm inspired by that piece. This whole thing that I've done here today is inspired by that piece. I really feel that piece. I really feel that that is the root or the core of what I feel as a Native American. And I have brought all of these things together to somehow resonate with that piece. That you look at this one over here that I meant for this to symbol the prairie with the buffalo, the prairie grass, like that. So that's my symbol for the piece right there. So I think I pretty well fulfilled that, and I want to go here to this piece. This piece is my painting. This is all my painting of the buffalo. This is painted on wood, and so it's not reworked in any way. It's straight on. So this is the buffalo who never dies. This buffalo will never die, and they're the symbols, the rattle, this is the rain, the lightning, of course, is the thunder, and the horns stir, the soup of the sky into curds, and those curds are the clouds, and the clouds then rain down to the earth, and the feet, cultivate the earth for the grass to grow. So that's all in this. And over here, this is what we call the braided sweetgrass. The sweetgrass is the offerings principally for the buffalo. Anything to do with the buffalo, mainly the sweetgrass is going to be that. You see, so what we're saying, that it is an offering. And why it is an offering is because that the buffalo animal was almost extinguished by the invaders. So we're saying there's this which one must have but cannot get, and yet without it one becomes the enemy of life. So we are always offering this grass to the buffalo there. And let me express that piece here in this way. Here in Turtle Island, we get ahead of having to die by living the life of our buffalo ancestors. Soaking in that old buffalo, we do now as they did before. Immortality is the wish to be the calf of Mother Buffalo. or so to say, as the mother of my own one's self. And that way is to be soaked into the fund of the ancestral spirits. And this is the Buffalo Clan. In the Buffalo Clan, the most unifying concept in our whole clan memory is that of the sacred water hole on the prairie, in which lies the spiritual unity of the buffalo who never dies. It is the symbol of our continuity. From it comes all the true qualities, and to it those qualities are returned after they have been lived by the calves of Mother Buffalo. So here, when you have, this is the calf. This photo is by Vivian Olds. She's taken a lot of buffalo pictures up north there. So it's a beautiful little buffalo calf. And then over here, this bowl is an altar bowl, carved wood, maybe from cherry wood. It is reddened, and it is the altar symbol for the water hole on the prairie. Menispala is the name of the water hole. And so this is the wooden bowl, red bowl that way, stained with the cherry juice. And lastly, I had this up here before, so to say, this is a whole Navajo piece of Mother Earth. You know, I have it mounted in this the rock crystal star basket with the Earth Mountain bundle here. So that, I believe, brings everything. Oh, I should say, up here is a shield. Overlook that. This shield I have here, you know, it is a movie prop, and so actually I have it here. It's like it's a movie prop. It's sophisticated enough to fit in with this theme. It was a prop in the movie called Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman, and I think that was the first, or at least one of the first, Hollywood kind of movies that depicted the people. Most all of the Hollywood movies have been derogatory towards Native Americans, most of them. And most of the people playing in them, say Jay Silverheels, a Mohawk with Lone Ranger, have not been Native Americans. But anyway, that is a movie prop from that movie there to, you know, give a sense, particularly a clan sense, you know, for all of this. Here. So I think that takes care of it. So here now, aho.
Oh.